Oh snap! Star Wars is hitting us with a double feature, y'all. Welcome to the Syndicate, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Ronan Chain, and I have someone who I respect and admire from across the pond, or across the states, if you will. Um, she and her gang over there with Holland Marauders have been doing great work, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna message her and be like, if she says no, no, all right, whatever. But I'm like, we gotta talk Star Wars. So Jam the Jedi, welcome to the Syndicate podcast. So
Yeah,
glad to have you.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Wow, I wasn't expecting to be popped up on the main screen, even though it's just the two of us. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. So, for your listeners who might not be aware, I'm on the Holo Mauruders podcast. We are another Star Wars podcast, but it's myself and then AJ and Matt, and we talk all things Star Wars. And yeah, that's it. And thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm always down to talk on like other shows, and so I'm so excited to get to speak about the Bad Batch and I guess the Mandalorian, since it came out.
Yes, I'm glad you can make it. Folks, we're gonna start off with Bad Batch, and then later down the line we'll talk Mando. But right now we're talking season 2 of the Bad Batch, episode 11, Metamorphosis, and we're gonna start off with a few minutes of non-spoiler. And then we have to get into spoiler stuff and theorize about what's to come because this episode was a deep cut. If you've been following Star Wars and specifically animation, and so Jam, the batch got their shit back.
Yes, fantastic, wonderful.
Yes, Sid is giving them gripes, which at this point I'm like, guys, just dump her, and move on and whatnot. But it starts off with a very, I said it felt like James Cameron Aliens meets John Carpenter's The Thing with a sequence of a Republic commando running in this ship wreckage that's blown out of hyperspace, which we've seen in Rebels. And there's this being in this ship, and that the dark shadows of the Empire are experimenting on stuff, and they have to retrieve this item. And Sid's like, listen, we gotta make money. Go get this thing, yet another adventure, and find it. What were your first thoughts when the episode ended and you absorbed it? And I know how much you love animation, how much you love storytelling. So what did you think of episode 11 of Metamorphosis?
Yeah, so I not so boldly said this morning that this episode of the Bad Batch might be the best one so far, because like we don't know what the rest of the season is yet. Like I haven't been lucky enough to see any of the episodes in advance, but from what I've been told, like yet to come is gonna like knock our socks off. But this episode alone was everything that I like possibly could have wanted, because you arguably could have like started the season with this episode, and I think that's just like how like strong it was. I mean, the rest of the season is good for like the whole background and the characters so far, but like this episode was really like, all right, we're off and running. The events that happened at the end of season 1, they matter now, and like this is what's going on now, and it just leaves you thinking.
I agree. I felt like this does the best when Bad Batch wants to do the adventure episode, but in doing an adventure episode, it ties in with the background stuff of what's happening in the galaxy, and it hones in on like, okay, how is this connected to our characters and their fates going onwards. This felt like you should watch this, not just because the Bad Batch are at it again, trying to pick up another thing and so forth, but because this is something that dates back to war, and it's something that connects to Omega in a deep way. And I love the pacing of it. I loved, again, Kevin Kiner. That man should be put on like trophies thrown at him every week when he puts out music. I mean, that last arc with the Western vibe with the guitar, I was just like, this fool is stretching. I thought he had done it already with Tales, with Rebels, and Clone Wars, and he's doing it again with Bad Batch. And I'm like, I'm so glad that like I know movies, and I know, okay, if you like sci-fi horror, this is right up your alley. And the fact that it fuses good with the adventure style that Hunter, Tech, Wrecker, and Omega consume.
Yeah, the Kiner brothers consistently have been like knocking it out of the park this entire season. Like the show has like taken it up like a notch with just like the way that it looks visually, but everything additionally as well. The Kiner brothers just are always like hitting every single beat at so good. And like there's so many little like references, like if you do like consume a lot of other media outside of Star Wars, that you pick on immediately. You have like those Western twangs, you have like that Blade Runner vibe when they're like in Coruscant and whatnot, like that. Little things like that make me like, oh, it's so good. You had like 70s like war movies, like Vietnam era when they were on Kashyyyk.
Yep.
Like those were like all like really, really good. And it's like you want to have it in your Star Wars, and I want to have it in like every single like piece of Star Wars now. But the Counter Brothers consistently are always on point. Plus, like I love how they interact so much on Twitter and like constantly like troll us, like of like, oh, this is what's gonna happen this week. Like it's so good. Like I just love seeing them like engage like so much like with the community.
I agree. Also, it's the opposite of online interaction, where it's like, okay, you get people who don't have lives and just want to spat out, and then you have stuff where like, okay, once in a while the creator might interact with its community and either lead them astray or just engage, be like, keep a lookout for this episode and whatnot.
It's just enough. It's always just enough. And like
exactly.
It's always something like wild too. Like a couple weeks back, it was literally Simba like watching like Mufasa. And it's just like, oh my god. And that it had like that exact scene. It's just like, how do these things like happen? But this week was perfect with all of that.
And with that, that is as much as I want to say non-spoilers. So if you haven't seen the episode, I think we can recommend it, right, Jam?
Yes, definitely. This one will put you a little bit more on edge in the beginning, so be careful if like you get scared easily. You might get a little spooked very easily in this.
But if you're into this stuff, this episode is metal as hell. So now, folks, we're going into spoilers. So you've been warned. If you haven't seen it, that's on you. If you have, Zelo Beast, I did not think. It makes sense. They bring it up now concerning what Palpatine's secret work has been in the background. It makes sense. It's just that's a deep thing that I remember when I first watched Clone Wars. I was just like, they're doing a Godzilla arc. Cool. Yeah. Okay, I've never heard of this beast in canon before. But like, all right, whatever. And the fact that they're bringing it now to Bad Batch, and that's my biggest takeaway. The fact that we are delving into deep, and this I remember as a kid watching the Hellboy movies. I remember just talking about like there was, the Nazis had the mad scientists looking for the occult and whatnot. I love when we step in when our heroes are in over heads, whether it be whichever era, and they're like, all right, this is what the Empire or the Sith were doing behind the scenes, and you're like, whoa, the scratches on the walls, and they bring up the armor plating skin, the fact that it can grow. I did my best, and Disney Plus, this is a critique, and I think you rightfully brought it up in your
my god, right? Yeah, when you log on the show, they do a slideshow of what's new or like what's new this week, and like they showed like the big poster of like Mando and whatnot for season 3. They showed the Bad Batch, and then it says new episodes Wednesday. It was literally
the money shot. It's the Zelo Beast, like
the Zelo Beast on the generator, and it's like,
yeah.
Hey, wait a second. I know it's not the Bad Batch, but this is a big plot point if you know what kind of big lizard that is.
And so, I was going, so I had recorded Mando reactions, and I was just like the machine, be like, all right, recorded it, edit it, render it, upload. And I was like, I'm gonna go to bed now. And I kept seeing a lot of mutual friends of ours or other fans being like, don't sleep on Bad Batch. And I was like, I'm not sleeping on Bad Batch, just I'm tired. But people kept saying this episode is good. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna. If you look at my reaction, I'm like, my hair is off. I'm like, all right, guys, listen, I love the Bad Batch, but I'm tired. Let's see what this is about. And that opening just kicked my gears. It woke me up. And this is implying a lot of stuff going forth, even down to, might I even suggest, Mandalorian stuff that's brought up in Mandalorian. I think.
Like the big thing with this episode was they're finally diving into the whole broader cloning program that the Empire has in place. And so like we know that's what the Empire does. Most of their projects are behind very tightly sealed doors, and we're never going to learn what they are, except if they're part of that little like group. And we learned so much about the Empire trying to do additional cloning, and they want to do very specific cloning, but they don't know how because they need Nala Se to do it. But they have these other programs going on at the same time. And it's so interesting to finally like peel that away to learn more. And like even like later on, like Omega says that like she's aware that there were other programs the Kaminoans were working on. And so the Zilla Beast was one of those things. This was someone's project like the entire time. And that's wild, knowing that like they had the Zilla Beast, they managed to find a way to contain it. And they're like, all right, that's it. You 3 people go work on this thing and we're never going to talk about it again. But then they brought it back up, and it's so exciting to see that. But one thing that keeps coming up in my mind is a big reason why I think that they pushed the Bad Batch back to coincide with Mando is because I think that it is going to be something really seriously crossing paths with the whole cloning situation. Like, obviously, the Bad Batch is clones, but we've seen like the cloning tanks in the Mandalorian as well. Like, there was the one facility on Navarro, and like the, not to bring costumes into this, but the there's the Imperial like cloning outfits that Dr. Pershing and then a couple of his like dudes like had in the Mandalorian, and we know Dr. Pershing is in this season again. It's all gonna cross paths. I'm still gutted that the Bad Batch was pushed back as far as it is, but I think that at this point it's clear something's gonna come up in the Bad Batch that's gonna be important in Mando.
It can't be a coincidence. And if it's not a coincidence, then that's a missed opportunity, in my opinion, with Lucasfilm. Be like, okay, for the next month, you're giving us a double feature each Wednesday. So you're asking us, not just casual people, but us fans who cover this, are enthusiastic about sharing our thoughts about it, that we are going to have to shift our sleeping schedules. And now, they never said that stuff is going to cross the line, but I'm like, you've brought in stuff from Clone Wars and Rebels. Favreau and Filoni have been adamant about we want to bring everybody involved when we're doing these stories onwards and when we're telling stories interactively with one another series. Yeah. I am with you. I'm willing to bet that this can't be a coincidence, that like first of all, it's too good to not go down that road and just see what happens. And it's good. I always said it best that like it's what stuff from season 1 of Mando, that like if you know what this Camtono is, it's a little nod to you. If you don't know what it is, it's a cool little new thing to Star Wars that you can come to like. I think you can add that specifically with this episode of the Bad Batch, where it's like, and when people choose to even do comics. I remember when the Shattered Empire comic series came out, and it was the implications of like Palpatine has contingency plans. I'm like, movies, shows, run with that. If you don't want to do it as a main story, run with that in the background, and that will just make not just the pew 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 and laser swords, lightsaber fights that exciting. It'd be like, all right, what's happening in the background with people, to the point that in my reaction, I was like, what the hell? Okay, the Zilla Beast, it's gotten bigger, it's gotten mayhem. The Batch don't know what to do. The Empire have gone out of the way to come back and get it, not kill it, but get it. And now this town that's had a power outage has to be taken away just because they saw something the Empire didn't want to leak. I remember that was like being like, what the hell? Everybody was taken away. I was just like,
first, I was just like, why are they running up this entire town? Like, what the heck did the town do? If anything, the town is like destroyed. And I was like, oh, are they like refugeeing them? But then later on, there's like a throwaway line that's just like, oh, deal with the town, like deal with everyone. Like they're just gonna straight up kill all of them. And it's like, hang on. We saw a UFO, and now the government is trying to kill us. Like that's literally what happened. And it's wild, but it's so good to see like the Empire acting at its full power finally, at least within the Bad Batch. I think that like I lost my train of thought. I'm not sure what I thought there.
No, it's okay. About the Empire trying to make sure that they cover the tracks when they're doing their dirty work. And my question into that realm I was going to ask you is that we're introduced to, so Nala Se is back. She's in the cage. They're holding in that mountain, which they tease at the end of season 1.
Yeah.
They bring up this doctor with his glove and his hand. I know Star Wars. I know a lot of these. I know the lines, but I was like, this character looks familiar, but I don't know. Is he a new character or is he someone who popped up
So he's brand new. He's brand new,
okay.
but the actor is Jimmy Simpson. So he was in Westworld. He was like Opoyle in Always Sunny. So
Right.
like that's probably where you'd recognize him from.
Right.
But I'm really interested to see like where he could go because he has like a kind of like unsettling, really calm voice. Anyway, so like I'm wicked interested to see like where that goes and where that develops.
It was the glove thing because I remember as a kid reading the Jedi Prince novels where it was this very EU expansion of like what would happen after the movies, and there was this character named Trickles and whatnot, and he had the glove of Darth Vader that would make him powerful. It's a weird batshit thing that I remember as a kid, and I was just like, that feels like that.
I think that for Dr. Hemlock here, what a wild name, Dr. Hemlock. That's so like not Star Wars, but okay. Whatever. I think that he probably had lost some sort of mobility or tried doing experiments like on himself, like Dr. Connor style. Like I think that's like what's going on with like him, something like that.
I also love it felt like the opening of Rogue One, where like we were this close to bringing peace and order to the Empire. You're confusing peace with horror. Like, well, you gotta start somewhere. It was very much like that Orson Krennic, Jyn Erso's father, Galen Erso's scene, very much. And yeah, I liked that when all was said and done, the Bad Batch escaped. Whew, they dodged that bullet or that blaster.
Yeah.
But Omega knew this stuff. She was familiar with it. And Tech was scooping up data from it. And when she pulled the thing, I'm like, no, keep loading up. There's still more to bring in. And the fact that Tech knew, listen, this is the same thing that attacked Coruscant in the war. And that he goes out of the way to say, Hunter, there's more to this than just a weird thing that we pull up. And he tells Hunter, makes a decision, send this to Echo and Rex. They should look into it. Which I'm like, what does that mean now? Like
that's huge. Well, it means that they're going to meet up with everybody, and I think that this is where the title of the episode comes from. Metamorphosis is not only is like the Zillo Beast like growing, but it's Hunter makes a decision. We have to link up with Echo and Rex again, and we have to not do stuff for Sid anymore.
Get involved. Yeah, we have to get involved with countering the Empire. Which beautiful, Jim. I was like, I knew this title was more. It wasn't just a cool title. It has to mean more stuff to it.
Yeah, I'd assume that's what it means. Like most of these titles like have like a couple different like interpretations like this, but I think that makes the most sense. It is like that essential like turning point for it. I love like with everything, all the research for the Zillo Beast, like obviously Tech's doing everything that he can to download it, but I love Tech's fascination with the Zillo Beast the entire time as well, though. Because, like, he's doing his job. He's, like, getting all the power, like, up, and then he's doing everything else. But, like, the moment he sees the Zillo Beast, like, absorbing all the energy, I swear, like, the lenses, like, popped out of his goggles. He was like, oh, fascinating. Like, I've never heard him speak like that before. Like, it was wild.
Folks, I know this is a Star Wars podcast, but I also consider myself a Trekkie. And I know Filoni and crew are Star Trek fans. That was very much a Spock moment. There's if you look back at the original series of Star Trek, there's a moment when the Enterprise has encountered this thing from outer space, and it just zooms in on Spock and him shouting or being appalled. He just twirls his eyebrow, going, fascinating. Oh, I read that. I was like, that is a Spock moment. That is not just like I'm not in like creeped out or in danger, but I'm like, that is unique. You don't see that every day.
That's funny. They probably did. I mean, like this episode was like ripe with like sci-fi references from like every other like major like fandom. So like, why not? Like it must have been like the entire like opening sequence of just seeing the abandoned ship just like floating around and like seeing a commando running around scared for his life.
The commandos, oh my god!
It's something you don't want to see. A friend like texted me that this morning. He was just like, a commando running alone in the halls. No, that's not good. That's not something we should like look forward to. That was all just terrifying, but it was just so good though.
After the episode, even thinking about the Republic Commandos, I'm like, I wonder what Gregor's up to.
So like. Immediately I like thought of like Gregor just like running around in that one episode, but like this one, like Gregor's chilling with Echo and Rex and whoever else they have like with them so far. Like who's with them?
Is my theory, I can't be too off. What do you think, Jem? Do you think that like the Bad Batch is probably one of the first rebel cells that Mon Mothma, that Bail
Uh,
Organa start developing? Like, or maybe I always said that if they're not a rebel cell, they're the black ops to the rebellion. They're like, all right, this is
yeah.
a crew that we only use for like no way. It's this. It's basically the Suicide Squad without them being criminals and whatnot. They're like, listen,
Right.
there's no way a normal person, normal soldier could do this. We need your expertise, and this is very vital.
Right. So I think that would make a lot of sense if they would eventually like take on that kind of a role. The only downside is we still don't know how the Bad Batch's story ends. We only know how Rex's story at this point ends. And we know that everyone surrounding Rex right now isn't there. So we know that something terrible is going to happen to the majority of them, or a group of them is going to split off and go a different direction, and for some reason aren't in contact with Rex by rebels. But I mean, like, they could easily remedy that by having Rex make a phone call eventually in like Rebels era and be like, "Hey, I need you guys or something," and they're like, "Ah, I can't." But I really like that idea though, that the Batch should be Rebellion Special Operations, because why not? Because like the Rebels like do eventually have that. At this point in time though, like the Rebellion is so loose, like it barely exists.
Small.
Like we have like Saw Gerrera starting to do his thing, and
Yeah.
like Mon Mothma and Bail are starting to do their thing, and Luthen is like barely involved with that now that we have like all the Andor stuff, but like it's all barely beginnings of pockets fomenting, as our friend in Andor said. I just loved like being able to see Mount Tantus again finally, and like it's in this silly Imperial medical cloning officers that I've been obsessed with since the end of season 1, and now they both have names. Oh my god, I just fantastic.
The details, just the small little things.
I'm the only one who cares. I guarantee you. I guarantee you I'm the only one who cares about like these two medical cloning officers, Emery Carr and Dr. Scalder. I'm the only one who cares about them. Their names are in the credits.
I'll put it to you this way. I would rather spend more time with those than with Sid. I'm like, listen, Sid, you've already done the squad so bad. I'm like, let's just stay a day in that mountain and see what else are they cooking and make it cool for us fans to be like, we know what they're doing, but the rest don't know what they're doing.
And at this point, Sid, I mean, it's not really like she cared in the first place, but like she kind of came around to caring a little bit. But this week, she didn't care at all. She did not care at all. And the way that this episode ends up with the Imperials, or with literally, oh gosh, the Kaminoan Prime Minister, former Prime Minister.
I know who you're talking about.
Why can't we remember his name? Lama Su.
There we go. Lama Su. Yeah, I know who's talking about. Yeah.
That's why I'm here. He literally uses the bargaining chip of find this little girl, because that's how you're gonna get to Nala Se. And so now the Empire is like, all right, we need to find this small child. And Sid's gonna rat them out. That's how it's gonna happen. She's gonna rat them out, and she's probably gonna regret it. And I think Sid's gonna die by the end of the season, if anyone dies.
Biting the bullet, yeah.
Yeah, I think she will. Yeah.
Folks, that's what we'll talk about of Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 11, Metamorphosis. I think your theories are valid. I think that I just want to bring one more thing up, and then we'll transition into Mando. I haven't heard or felt Crosshair in a minute. It's been a while since.
I miss him desperately. Like I'm not a Crosshair fan at all, but like in like the in between seasons like break, like I like learned to like appreciate him so much as a character, and I miss him desperately. Like I think it'll be big for him the rest of the season. I'm pretty confident in that.
Solitary Clone, I think that's still my favorite episode. That episode, you are literally rooting for the bad guys up to a point, but then you realize how much perspective goes into soldiers, in the galaxy far, far away or now, and just what that'll do to you. And yeah, I think if I look back at it now, I think this episode is up there. I think I still prefer Solitary Clone and Tribe, just because even Tribe, I was like, yo, that's a lost episode. That was pre-animation. That was like, that's a lot of that. That's wow. You took something so unique to fans who knew about it from the toy chest and was just like dusted off. It was like, okay, let's put it 1080p and see where it goes. But this one was also something that, like, again, if you followed us from Clone Wars, here you go. If you're new to it, we can do a Godzilla episode. We could do a kaiju episode and whatnot. And the Book of Boba Fett has trained us already thus far. Even though I have my thoughts on that finale also threw in kaiju vibes. So I was like, we should be trained.
I think that arguably, like, with this episode, like, since it came out the same day as Mando season 3, I think that arguably you really could watch this episode of The Bad Batch and never have watched anything of The Bad Batch or Clone Wars like before, and it would make sense. And I think that it would help the broader scheme of, hey, the Empire is scheming and you should pay attention to that. So even if, like, people were just like watching like Mando today, I think that this is a perfect companion to it. Even though it didn't really relate to today's episode, it's like just getting like the thoughts in our head. Yeah.
I agree. Folks, that's our talk for Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 11, Metamorphosis. I can't wait to cover next week's episode and see where the season ends up, specifically by the time this month ends, and how we lead up into London Celebration in about a few weeks from now. But in the meantime, we are talking Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1, The Apostate. Wow, man. So I'll just right off the bat, again, no non-spoiler, then we'll do spoilers. I like this episode a lot, and it's setting up a lot of what this season should be brought up. Now, because people might ask later, I think this isn't as strong as a pilot like the first episode of Season 1 or episode of Season 2. But what it does unique is that, yes, Mando and Grogu are back, but I am adamant that they're going to put everything we know about Mandalorians and the points of views under a microscope. And we're going to say, what do you think? Can these things coexist, or will they be divided just as in the past and now into the future? But Jam, what did you think of The Apostate, Chapter 17?
So quick little no spoilers for The Apostate. I love this episode. It was perfect from Rick Famuyiwa. I can never pronounce his name correctly, but it was a perfect Rick episode. And like everything about this episode was something that it opened up everything that they're going to kind of touch upon so far, at least to lean into. And yeah, like I agree. It was pretty much like, hey, we're just gonna show you like the basis of Grogu and Din are back, and like this is where everyone left off of like who's important. So like this is what's going on on Navarro, and this is what's going on with the Children of the Watch, and like a little bit of like Bo-Katan, but like this is like setting each of those like bits. And yeah, it was like a good episode. Like it was fun. It was a good watch, but like for me, nothing compares to the Marshall episode. So, but like it was like a really good watch though today.
I get it. That Marshall episode was like, wow, you have to read a specific book just to do this. And that Marshall episode was also
even.
Oh,
not
yes,
even.
try like, right. But even it would be like a mini movie. I felt like a mini movie that episode.
Yeah,
I was very impressed by that one.
Like to prep going in for Mando this season, because we haven't had new Mando episodes in almost 2 years. Like Book of Boba Fett half counts, but like we haven't had actual Mando content in a while. So like we ended up watching the Marshall. Well, I watched the season 1 recap. I didn't rewatch anything from season 1, unfortunately.
Right.
I watched the Marshall, the Heiress, the Believer, and then the Return of the Mandalorian from Book of Boba Fett. I've rewatched From the Desert Comes a Stranger way too many times because Cobb Vanth is my guy. But that's beside the point. And I'm just super glad that like I did like rewatch like that handful of episodes just for this. But I think that because we watched so many of the heavy hitters within like the past day, watching this season 3 premiere, I was just like, all right, Mando's back. I'm excited, but like it was good. But I was left a little bit like, all right.
I get it. I think, and maybe, who knows, maybe it wasn't because I didn't do rewatch. I said, you know what? If Mando had not popped up in Book of Boba Fett, then I probably would have rewatched some stuff. But I was like, I missed them, but I also just got them not too long ago, which, for better or worse, maybe takes away from the finale and whatnot. But
Yeah.
yes, I dug this episode, but it wasn't like, boom, this is up there with the Sin, with the pilots, with the Jedi. From the desert comes a stranger. It wasn't up there, but there was this sense that with Navarro, with Grief Karga, time did pass,
Yeah.
and a lot has changed. And I think you can see, especially with that opening, that Mandalorian baptism, if you will. At first I thought it was a flashback, and I was just like, this doesn't look like a young Pedro Pascal.
Wait a minute.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. And then I see pause, but I'm like, no, this is not. And then just first of all, it was just seeing cool. I just seeing a lot of Mandalorians just fight off a big giant crocodile. I just love that. And then you see the N1 fly in, do his thing. Ludwig's music, adventure music kicks in, title card. But I love that Din is exiled or excommunicado, if you will, if you're a John Wick fan. And he's still adamant about honoring the Children of Watch, who he's learned by now that that's not the only way you could be a Mandalorian. You still think that's the only way to do it, but that's not the only way. Are you fascinated? Or what are your thoughts about him still being like, listen, you threw me out of the club, but I still have so much love and respect for this club that I'm willing to amend things.
He's just so confused because it's everything that he's done his entire life, and he doesn't know how to make that change. Like he's learned to like live his life with Grogu by his side, but he's still trying to fit everything that he used to do in his old way as well. And I think that he'll eventually come into awareness that like even though like he has made the change to like accommodate for Grogu, he needs to do a little bit further, because it's not like Grogu is about to join the Children of the Watch with him, because like that just won't happen. The entire cult of the Children of the Watch just bothers me so much, because like it's just like, come on, like just this is the way. No, just come on. Like I just get so much like side eye the walls like when I watch this episode. Like I like watched it by myself this morning because like AJ and I like stagger like the times that we like watch it. And so I'm just watching it and I'm like rolling my eyes, looking at like the stuffed animals like sitting next to me. I'm looking at like 6 porgs and they're just looking back at me like, yeah, I get it. And so it like the entire time during this first episode, during like the opening sequence, they're fighting this big crocodile. At one point the armor goes into the water after someone to like rescue them. I was like rooting for her helmet to get ripped off and then everyone to be like, oh my god, you're an apostate, and then she was gonna be like, damn. I wanted it to happen so bad because I wanted to see what would happen if one of their helmets accidentally came off. Like I thought it was going to happen, but then it didn't. But
I get your sentiments. I'm still torn about them just because I'm like, you're taking it a little too far. Like this is why cults, we don't like cults.
It's a cult. That's exactly what it is. Like it is a cult, and like when you leave like that kind of the setting, you'd never know what it was actually like on the outside, pretty much. And then you try to go back. I don't know why he's trying to go back. I don't know why he's trying to go back. That's what it is.
I think it's just because it's the only home he knows. But I think that's why I feel like this season should push for more locations, to be like, there's more to this galaxy than just that.
More locations. They went to like 4 places this episode.
Exactly. But speaking of locations and more to this galaxy, I have another Star Wars fan. I got Bizzybron joining us talk. Busy, how you doing, man?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good.
Yes.
We're back with Mando.
Of course.
Right now, for the next few minutes, we're just talking non-spoilers.
Okay.
What did you think, man?
I'm really looking forward to more. I mean, I think it was a fun start. I do want to say that. I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of people have a lot to say, and you know, I don't even know how to say this, but a lot of people complain, you know. But I don't think it was as bad as people were saying it was, and I still had a really good time with it. I guess that's without spoilers. But yeah,
okay.
It was fun.
Okay. Yes, I do agree there's validity with the critiques. I think there's validity with the critiques, but that is because we care. It's not because we're just bored on a Wednesday night. We have enough already. I mean, at least I don't know about you, Jen, but I know me and Busy. I think you probably do watch it, but like we have enough already to deal with The Last of Us on Sunday. So
No, jeez.
this is coming from someone who's already in the Pedro Pascal seasons, and now we're going into him taking care of another kid and another galaxy, another hostile environment. But to wrap things up, non-spoilerish, I did enjoy the episode. I think what they gave Katie Sackhoff to do was unique, and I loved it because with Katie, she already has credit to being a badass. She can move, she can hold her own, but it's moments like in the Siege of Mandalore where she just looks to the side and sees all this wreckage and this war, and she says, "I wish I knew something other than war." And it's moments that I'm like, okay, do an episode about that. Let's go into that. And then seeing her just not even as a mad queen, but just someone like, I don't know if it's Napoleon or what, I don't know, but it just felt like she lost all she was going for. Everything, her cause has gone away, and she has this big castle to represent who her family was and how she felt like she was going to move on with the Mandalorian future. And now she's alone and wants to be alone. I like that part. It was a nice to see because I'm like, oh, she should be leading something, but it was nice to see Katie do the side of Bo that we haven't seen yet. Well, I mean, they spoiled it in the trailer, but when she says "go home," there's nothing left. I was just like, oh, I hope we dive deep into more into that. So yes, I would suggest that go watch the episode. By no stretch is it my least favorite of the show thus far, and keep an eye out with a lot of the details that are being brought upon, especially when they're in hyperspace. And now this is my segue to saying to all y'all, this is spoilers. You've been warned. God be with you. Purgles, Jam, Busy. I was in denial. I was like, holy we got Space Whale. What the is going on? Dave, are you messing with my emotions? Are you messing with all emotions?
The show. I had to pause the show because I was just in awe that like they actually finally showed it. And just getting these crumbs for Rebels and what's to come later on, possibly this season or definitely in like the Ahsoka show. Like I'm just so excited to like see like just getting to see the Purgle, even though we didn't fully see them, we just saw the shadows. And like I love how like Grogu saw them from a distance and he was definitely just like, oh, curious about it. And then I think he got scared because he just like crawls down to like Din just to like snuggle to like for comfort. And like that was just, it was just perfect. It was a perfect little Grogu moment, but it was just a perfect moment for us Rebels fans as well, just to see that finally.
I agree. Busy.
Not yet. Right away, I'm like, Ezra. When are we getting Ezra? You know, like that's all I can think about. Like, I mean, with the Ahsoka show right around the corner, or not really right around the corner, but still, it's just that's all I want to see. Like, I just can't wait to see like a little Rebels reunion. Like, that's enough to get me so excited for that series. And Ahsoka was already enough to pull me in, but to know that there's other characters that are returning, and just there's so much to be stoked for. And I think it's going to be amazing. One thing that I am questioning, it's like, the Mandalorian made his way into the Book of Boba Fett. I'm just curious on how likely it is for him to make his way into Ahsoka. Like, what are the probabilities of them, doing what they did with Book of Boba Fett and like giving him a whole episode?
It's a fine line they walk, because I don't want everybody to be in everybody's show, but there should be, a wink. Maybe not even a week, but just be like, oh, so you're here, this guy and this guy? Interesting. Well, good luck with what you got to do. We got to do this. I think it'd be a missed opportunity if in the not too distant future, Din Djarin meets Sabine Wren. If Grogu meets Sabine Wren, I think it'd be a missed opportunity if they don't do that. But yes, so we get the Purgles. So Mando is like, I'm going to Mandalore, but he stops by Navarro. He stops by his old to meet an old friend. We see familiar droids, familiar creatures. I believe I spotted a Minoth, the thing from Empire Strikes Back. I might be wrong, but I think I spotted one. We saw a Mon Calamari, and we see Grief Karga. He's got another wardrobe with droids holding his cape, which I was like, that's adorable and very egoistic and whatnot. We salute finally the IG-11 statue because we've always seen him in the background. But I did not think that Din was trying to get IG back to ride with him to Mandalore. I thought that was intriguing. And it's also maybe me, but I'm also like, okay, I know people who've died in Star Wars can come back, but usually if they do bring him back, it's because there's a whole new dimension to stretch that character and see what they might bring to the fold. Were either you two shocked that we're trying to get IG-11 back, and how do you feel about that onward?
I don't think it's gonna work out. I don't think it's gonna work out at all. I mean, like he does try it and it fails spectacularly. First of all, and it's like I don't watch Doctor Who, but I know of the references of like the Daleks yelling "exterminate," but he's literally just yelling "terminate," just running around like crawling around
like Terminator.
And, like, it was nuts. I don't know. It was just like completely out of nowhere, and like it wasn't really explained. He's just like, "Oh, I need a droid to like help me map out Mandalore." It's just like, okay, like I'm just excited to see. Like I know that based on like the trailers, there's like a droid bar he goes to eventually. So I'm excited for like Din Djarin to go to like the bar to pick up a droid. Like that's gonna be great. That's what I'm excited for.
Right on. Busy, what do you think? Should we let IG rest?
Nah, I mean, it's a tough situation specifically for Mando, who has no trust in droids, whatsoever. So to see him, want, IG specifically, going out of his way, requesting him to have it turn out the way it turned out, even though they, everyone was saying, this isn't going to work out, like this is probably not the best idea, and I was honestly surprised he turned on, the fact that, they managed to get as many parts as they did, I was like surprised that he turned on, but I don't know why I should have expected him to kind of go crazy, but that wasn't even the first thing I was thinking of. I was already just surprised that he turned on, and then as soon as he started going crazy, and then literally threw Grogu like a football. That was funny. I was like, you got to see this coming. And he's like, oh, take this, and then he just launches him. I'm like, yo, man. It was crazy, yeah.
And the fact that like Grief even offers him some land, I'm like, this is. I know I know John said there's no ending it, and marked already to where he could go, but I'm like, listen, just get him and that widow and her daughter from season 1, get them together. Let them settle down, and then if the call for help comes along another way, fine, bring him back. But I think that should be the goal now. I'd be like,
dude,
just get him
a reunion I would love to see.
Yes,
I want to see that so bad.
And let her take off his mask and be like, I'm
waiting for him to get to the point where he realizes that the creed that he's with is just a bunch of crazy people. And so he just like, ends up being like, he's like, maybe I don't need to keep this on. And like, who are they to tell me I can't be a Mandalorian? like, I'm just waiting for something to happen, but it's going to be fun.
Pedro's gonna be like, all right, I got a break between Last of Us. All right, let's do it. What do you need me to do?
The armor is going to take off her helmet. It's going to turn out to be Bella Ramsey the entire time. Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
But yeah, so we stopped by Navarro. It doesn't work. We met the Jam. Is it the Antzillans? Is that the species? Is that the
They're Antzillian,
right?
Antzillians. Yeah.
I thought that was amazing. That was amazing. The whole like it really reminded me of like, I don't even know how to say it, but just I don't even know what it was, but them in the garage and then barely speaking English. It felt like a little slice of home.
I was at Celebration, and I think you two were. Yeah, you were. We met there. I don't know if you were in the room when they showed the footage, but it was literally the minute you see him moving his tools, everybody flipped the F out that we were getting a Babu Antzillian, Babu free creature.
I heard about it at the celebration, Charlie. I didn't get to like see it in person, but I love how pretty much like the one thing everyone loves about Rise of Skywalker is Babu Frick. So like I'm so glad that they actually pulled him into Mandalorian, and I love how his entire species are just these really good droidsmith mechanics. And I loved their little shop. Like it was so cute. Like I love how it had like the small door in the first place. He's just like leaning on like the door frame, just like, hey, what can I help you with? And like it was
so great.
Perfect.
Seeing Mando literally sitting crisscross applesauce.
Yeah.
And it looked like a full-on garage. Like it looked like, you know, it was so fun to see them
the
just
reveal
doing their
of
own thing.
Like
yeah, it was really
it's
cool.
all of them talking to each other, and then like Mando, it's cut the way like it's like a normal conversation, and then it's just their one random wide shot, and he's just like kneeling there, and then Grief looking through like the door, like
well, they were shooting it a certain way, and I didn't catch it the first time, I think, initially. But when I rewatched, I was editing myself. I'm like, they chose to shoot it from a shot that reveals Grief and Mando talking, and you can barely see the door. And it's not until you start thinking, well, talk to the mechanic one eye, and it's just like, which one? And what I didn't see coming was the hug / attempt to eat. The creature from Grogu. I thought that was one of the most beautiful, sweetest, horrifying things I've ever seen. And then when they put it in the concept art, I'm like, I need a print of that. I need that.
He was like, he was the what was it? He yelled "bad baby." He was like
bad
baby.
Yeah. Please, bad baby. Like it's so good. Like I love how they got Shirley Henderson. She was Moaning Myrtle in the Harry Potter series, and so she did the voice and the puppeteering for
really?
Yeah, she did the voice.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah, she did the voice in Tross, and then she also came back and did all the little Andellans this time. So like, I love how they incorporated that again. Like they created that dialect like for the Andellans, but it's also like the mix of like broken English as well. And so it was just so good to see them again. And like, I love when they pull random sequel stuff like into it, especially something as like literally as meaningless as the Andellan mechanics. It's just so good.
Yeah. Which after meeting them and being like, all right, it's not gonna work immediately. We have to go do some shopping, or we have to go travel. And then we get entangled with the pirates. It's again straight off Western. I love that so much. So much change of Grief. Like, and I love the line. Back then, you employed me to murder and cause mayhem inside this door. I want my drink. And the fact that Grief is now is like, try me. First of all, you don't mess with Carl Weathers. That's just law. You don't do that. They shoot at the place. Mando offers to help. And I'm just gonna, if you two want to comment about it, go for it. I'm gonna just comment it just because I'm shocked they brought it up. And I'm like, okay, it's addressed. We can move on. And if stuff gets better on both parties, more and merrier. But after that, Grief says, I need a marshal.
Yeah.
Dan's like, what about Dune? What about Marshal Dune? She got recruited for special forces after the whole Gideon situation. And he says, like, why don't you bring another marshal from the New Republic? He's like, I don't want them putting their noses down here. We can manage our own and be a fresh thing for the Outer Rim. I'm glad they brought it up. I'm glad they didn't kill off the character. I do have my thoughts of the actress. I like Cara Dune from season 1, season 2. I think that was a cool perspective of someone from Alderaan, someone who AWOL, if you will, the war. And it doesn't close the door automatically, but it's a big galaxy, it's a big universe. There's stuff there to do, and the show's called The Mandalorian specifically.
Yeah, I can't remember. Did they cancel the Rangers of the New Republic?
Yes, they did.
They did, which broke my heart because I'm like, there's so much you can do with that.
Because I thought that would have been fun, little Leia cameos, different things like that would have been like so much fun to watch. But it is what it is.
I think that the fact that they handled it in like a 2-line, like this is what happened to her, this is where she is, like that's closed off enough for this story, but that's open up enough if they ever wanted to like a comic.
They
or
didn't
something
like
down
over
the road,
dramatize it or anything. Yeah.
Exactly.
Left us perfectly.
It's kind of like Iron Man 2 with I mean different circumstances, but it was Terrence Howard and Don Cheadle, and it's just like, listen, it's me, I'm here, let's move on. I was like, perfect. Because if they would have waited off any longer, people would have been lingering on that, and it's just like, okay, it's addressed, let's move on. and we do move on, and we get into the school space battle with Zane. I believe his name is
Vane.
Vane.
So
There
his
we
name
go.
is Vane. Do you
Vane.
guys know? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna dive into the
Please,
pirate
Jam,
lore.
take it.
So I was over the moon. All space jokes aside, that this pirate's name was Vane. So the main one outside of the little school that used to be the bar, his name is Vane. So Vane is taken from real life pirate Charles Vane, who was a pirate during the age of piracy. And like also he's a character in the show Black Sails and was my favorite character in that. So like the moment that Grief is just like, Vane, what are you doing here? I was my mind was blown. This is another small thing that like I apparently only I care about, but like the boss is named Gorian Shard, and like that's someone who's brand new, some like kelp man swamp thing looking like,
I honestly thought I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean for a second.
Yes. Oh my god. Like there was like all of these pirates like just like looked so good, and like they looked like Pirates of the Caribbean pirates put in space. So like it was just like so cool to like get to like actually see more space pirates, and like I love space marauders. Like that's just how it goes.
Oh, I think when we first met at Celebration, I was like, I'm so glad there's a whole channel that like loves Sidon Ethano as much as I do, and if they bring him, never mind. I'm not even gonna want to fantasize about that. But I do love when we bring in pirate elements to it, and that sequence in space so good. The way they shot it, and it in doing those moments with just Mando and Grogu in the ship, I love that there's something being taught. There's not just here, push the button and here we go. That like Mando's telling him, it's not just about this mask, not just about talking this way all the time. Much like a samurai, it's about everything you do. It's not just about the fighting. You have to know everything you make your way. That gives you, if you will, an edge over what a lot of the rest of the galaxy takes for granted. So I appreciate something like that. And him teaching, it's almost like when someone, a dad or a parent teaches their kid, okay, this is the steering wheel. This is where you hit brake. This is where you hit gas. And when I was like, this is what I miss. This is what I again, the Grogu bouncing around using the Force to grab, marbles and candy and whatnot. Like moments like that is what I cherish so much about this episode. Which him then teaches him like there's more than just Mandalore. There's a system about planets that make up the Mando system. And we go to this castle, and we see Bo-Katan in there, just sitting there, chilling. I'm not surprised her force is melted. That doesn't surprise me. It's just heartbreaking that they actually presented it right off the bat in this episode, and it alludes to, okay, well, now what is the Mandalorian Revolution? Is it just gone? Because she says they're mercenary now, which means what happened to Casca Reeves? What happened to Wolves? Because Wolves didn't show up in the finale of season 2. So I'm very intrigued to what they're gonna do. I said it that she and Din, after some fights and some arguments, they're gonna team up and be like, listen, we need to unite us all. We have our own issues, but there's a bigger issue to be dealt with.
You don't think we're gonna get a brawl between both of them for the Darksaber?
Oh yeah. Oh, I would put money down. I would put money down that it's gonna go down, and I don't know who's gonna win. I think Bo has more experience because she was with Death Watch, which her keep pointing to him, be like, "Where were you? You're cold. You're cold." I remember I edited it because it wasn't worth it. I was just like, "What the f- you in Death Watch? What are you talking about?" But yes, where do you think this is going to lead off in terms of the future of Mandalorian's differences? I know it's a big question, but I'm like, that's what I've been asking myself. It's not who's going to pop up, who's going to cameo. It's like, what are we doing with the Mandalorian society? Is it going to be like Braveheart? Are we going to unite everybody? What are we going to do?
So like I rewatched the scene with Bo a couple times because the way that she explained what had happened was like a little bit confusing at the first watch, and then I realized after the second watch that she meant somewhere that something we didn't see was she must have told all of her supporters, all right, I'm going to go attack Moff Gideon's cruiser with this other guy. and I'm going to win the Darksaber. And so like she like must have had some like big speech that said, guess what, everybody, it's happening, and then she literally saw it walk away from her. Like it didn't happen. So that's why she lost everyone. And then she's just being sad in the castle, sitting like a Jarl in Skyrim. And it was just like, I don't know why she's like sitting. Yeah. But like, I think that eventually like they will have some sort of a fight. But I think that if anything, their ideals might like align a little bit more, because maybe Bo will realize, hey, maybe this is someone who maybe not I'm fit to be the ruler, but maybe he eventually is, or maybe there's someone else out there who is. Because like she's also had a lot of wrongs, but so have the children of the Watch. Like both sects of Mandalorians have had their own issues, clearly.
Exactly. No one's got clean hands, in my opinion, when it comes to the Mandalorians. What do you think, Busy?
I don't know. It's just it's a tough situation all around, because I mean, when I first saw her specifically, she seemed broken. Like she just, there's a lot going on with her, and it's like just hearing her saying that it got to the point where she doesn't have these followers, they became mercenaries. And then we got Din, who's technically not even accepted by his own their own people. So it's like I feel like that's the only thing they got in common, where they're technically both loners. So I mean, I feel like that has to be enough to hopefully bring them together. But I don't know. I'm really excited to see at the end of this season what the big threat will be in order to bring them together, because something huge has to happen in order to bring them together. And but I just can't get over the fact that we're so close to actually seeing Mandalore, just in general, even if it is ashes and runes. But it's still gonna be like awesome to just step on it. I guess it's gonna be fun.
Right on. I recommend people go watch this episode. And the last two things I'm going to say is that I was so happy to see Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder get some credits on those kinds of dark, because that's the one thing that moved me when I wasn't there, but when I saw the panel for Mando Plus at Celebration, they brought up Lateef and Brendan, made them just as important as Pedro. Pedro is the Mandalorian, but so are those guys. And I rarely see that happen. I don't see superheroes doing that. I mean, the actors here and there will shout out their stunt doubles and whatnot. But I was so happy that they brought him on and be like, listen, you're just as important as Pedro and as Katie and as Dave and all that. So we appreciate what you're doing. And the fact that they got their names in the titles, I was just like, well done, muchachos. That's humility right there. I'm like, oh, I appreciate that so much. And what I'm going to say is this. Big theory, y'all. Big theory. Because I don't really do theory videos. I might do some in the future. I don't know. That the big bad we all have to worry about, Ahsoka, Mando, Boba Fett, Bo-Katan, everybody, Murder's Row, is Thrawn. He's the Thanos. He's in the shadows, pulling the strings. That's the big bad. And our journey is going to be to get everybody united and on the same page and see how do we beat that after all these years. And the Rebels, Ghost Squadron, Phoenix Squadron is gonna know about that. What I find unique is that's this, and then there's still a few years up until the First Order. So I wouldn't be surprised if all this is planned out and be like, listen, we're gonna try to get the galaxy again with Thrawn. If that doesn't work, we do Starkiller Base. We do this route. And I like that. One thing that we got in season 2 is the background stuff. It's the what was that captain? The guy who was in who's gonna be in the Avatar Last Airbender show.
The guy playing Iroh.
Yes.
I forget the actor's name, but I know
he's the captain.
The character's Carson Teva.
Yes, Carson Teva. Him saying him telling Kara, and they're like, listen, there's something going on. These incidents are coincidence. But we can't do nothing unless people work with us. And he popped up in the trailer saying similar stuff. And I'm like, don't cut that out as much just to focus on Grogu and Mando. Lean into that, because that is going to inform so much of the world and so much of what people need to prep. Jam, Busy, we've all seen these shows. We can kind of tell what's going on. We just want to see it play it out. A lot of us don't. So I am pumped as to see what they're doing now. And it's like, listen, you did Luke, you brought Cobb Vanth, you brought all this stuff. So it's like you have to stretch your muscle now and be like, how much can you do while still keeping the core of the storytelling in this show? But that's all I want to say right now.
And I feel like that's what's gonna make this a little difficult, because all of us here, we're gonna enjoy season 3 regardless. Like this episode, I don't think it was bad, but I feel like since season 2 just set a standard. It was just insane with everything, like the Luke cameo, the Ahsoka appearing, Boba Fett, all that stuff. So I do expect people to be like it's not on the same level of season 2, and just because they're not getting their cameos, people are going to end up complaining. But at the end of the day, it's going to be amazing, and I'm looking forward to it.
I just hope that this season dives more into bridging the post original trilogy to the sequel trilogy, and like what's going on with the New Republic. Like I really desperately want to know what's going on with the New Republic, because we have like little crumbs like tossed in like this entire episode of like Grief mentions that Moff Gideon is on like
War Tribunal.
Yes, the War Tribunal. And so like that's going on, and we'll eventually get to see what Dr. Pershing is up to. We'll get to see what Carson Teva is investigating. He just wants to know what's going on. And I can't wait to see like where that's going and where the New Republic is investigating. And I agree that eventually I think it will end up somehow with like there's this guy named Thrawn out there. Like I just really want to see like what happens if it all ties together.
I agree. Folks, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Syndicate, a Star Wars podcast. I am so thankful and grateful that JammtheJedi and Bizzybron were able to join me to talk this new seasons, if you will, of Star Wars. Jam, thank you so much. Plug yourself. Where can people find you, and tell them to go watch the show?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. This was a ton of fun to actually get to chat with you. All of my stuff is on Jam. It's on social media at JammtheJedi. I post all my cosplay stuff and just general Star Wars and other fandom nonsense. And then my other stuff is on the HoloNet Mauruders podcast. And so all of our social media is just at HoloNet Mauruders.
Beautiful. Busy, you're up.
Bizzybron everywhere. You can find me on TikTok. We're almost at 100K. You can find me on Twitter at Bizzybron. I mean, YouTube, everything's Bizzybron. So yeah.
Folks, go watch their coverage of this show. It's gonna be a blast. And I've said it, when seeing Star Wars is fun, but seeing people's enthusiasm that's similar to mine is just as fun. And that's the thing that I can't wait when a new show pops up. It's like, okay, did y'all catch something I didn't see, or did y'all think what I was thinking, and how similar, and where our theory is going to go and forth? But thank you, everybody who watched this show. I'm covering the show as well for the next few weeks and wrapping up the Bad Batch as well. And all I can say is, this is the way.